Hello.
Hi.
How are
my
you?
video.
We're good. How are you?
Fine. So, do we begin? Are you ready to answer to my questions? So, hello, Kate. Hello, Greg. Please, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
I'm Greg Sims, and we're both working together on the Tom and Jerry New York series. My background is started playing piano when I was 5. Pretty much always been into music, arranging music at a young age, and then I just kept it going. I really got fascinated by the symphony orchestra and started teaching myself a lot about that, and I really wanted to have something to do with that in my career. And then I heard Bill Evans on the radio one day and got fascinated by jazz, and actually got a jazz degree in college. And just one thing led to another. I started doing advertising music and a little bit of it to video, and realized that I really love doing music for video. So this is the 30-second version, and then and then that led to some feature films and animation. It's funny, my first 2 feature films were animated films, and I just kept at it. And eventually, by that time I was living in Nashville, Tennessee, and I decided to move to LA to really go for it in a bigger way. And I would joke that I was on the 200-year plan in Nashville, so I wanted to try to accelerate that a bit. And so I moved out here a few years ago, and things are going pretty well.
I'm Keith Baxter, born and raised in Canada, and moved to the US when I was 20 to go to music school. I also started playing music real young and drawing. Couldn't decide whether I wanted to be a professional artist or a professional musician, and I didn't know how to find an art school. But the music school that I ended up going to, they used to run an ad in the back of Guitar Player magazine. So that's how I picked my music school. So I
remember those ads.
Yeah. So I showed up in Los Angeles and studied under some amazing musicians, and then played music for a living for a number of years. Then the other thing I had loved was drawing, and so I applied at an animation studio, and they hired me. So I did that. I started out as a character designer. My very first show was, I think it was the last episode of She-Ra, Princess of Power. And from there, I went on to work. Yes, I worked on things like Ghostbusters, and the first real high profile show I worked on, I think, was Tiny Toons. And then I stayed at Warner Brothers for a good long while. I went on to Tasmania. Mm-hmm. Then I quit to go study computer animation, came back and was the animation supervisor on one of the very first CG animated projects. It was called Marvin the Martian in the Third Dimension. And it played at the Warner Brothers store in New York, and then it played at a theme park called Movie Land, and there's one in Germany and one in Australia. Then I did a few more years at Warner Brothers. Then when DreamWorks started their studio, they hired me away, and I worked at DreamWorks developing some shows for a while. Wrote songs and scripts for a show called Toonsylvania, and then I think after that I went over to Disney. Somewhere in there, somewhere I was at Disney. It's all a big blur now. Worked on a lot of stuff there. Went back to DreamWorks.
I should have gotten into animation.
Worked on stuff over there, and so I kind of bounced back and forth between music and animation over the years. When I had kids, it was really important to have a steady paycheck coming in. So that meant I was doing a lot more animation than I was music. But a it's a few years ago now, I've lost track of time, but I met Greg through his wife. I was working at Sony on one of the Hotel Transylvania movies, and I always used to play my guitar out at the coffee cart at lunch. And one day this little blonde lady comes up to the gate, hears me playing guitar, and I'm playing jazz standards, and she starts singing from the other side of the gate, and she was amazing. One of the other employees let her in, and we sang and played songs for an hour, and then we got to be friends, and they invited me over. I got to hear some of Greg's music. He played me some stuff he'd written, trying to get a Star Trek gig, and played me some songs for a play musical that he's writing, and we just all became real fast friends. And then the first chance I got to work together with Greg, we did something for one of the Hotel Transylvanias, and then then we did a couple more things that didn't get made. Then I got a call from Warner Brothers. The story supervisor on Tom and Jerry asked me if I would write some Tom and Jerry musicals. And the first time I turned him down, I was busy working on something else, but he called me a year later, which was last July. And he asked me again, and this time we had become a writing team, and I was just having so much fun working with Greg that this time I said yes. And so we started writing musicals for Tom and Jerry.
So you are recently working on the Tom and Jerry in New York score. Please, what can you tell us about the 7th episode of this new series? We do a segment. All of the musicals are 3 minutes long. That was just how Warner Brothers wanted it, and so we mix it up. We do all kinds of different styles of music for the different episodes, just whatever seems to fit the story. So I would pitch premises for the cartoons to the story supervisor, and he would clean out the ones that he knew, well, they're never going to go for that, or we've already done one that's a little bit like that, and then the ones that were left, Warner Brothers would pick one for me to go forward with, and then I'd write the cartoon, which typically meant writing the lyrics as well, since that's such a integral part of these. And Greg and I would figure out what kind of song that we wanted to do, and once we had enough of the song in place where I could break off and start storyboarding, then Greg would start recording the music and orchestrating and arranging it, and then we would put the pictures, the frames of storyboard on a program like Premiere or Final Cut, along with the music, and the storyboards would kind of develop together. So sometimes Greg would look at some of the drawings, and he'd say, "Ooh, how about I do such and such with the strings?" Or "What if the bassoon did this?" And then sometimes he would, in his arrangement, I'd hear something and go, "Oh, wow, well, hey, what if Tom does this when the arrangement's doing that?" So it would continue to evolve through the entire time I was storyboarding. And so we had 3.5 weeks to do a cartoon. And at the end of it, they kind of, like the music was completed right around the same time as the last storyboard was done. And then we would send it off. And
And I think Tom sings for the first time since like 1940 something.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we have Tom. Well, both Tom and Jerry do a little bit of singing.
Yeah.
For you, how to explain the worldwide and long success of Adventure of Tom and Jerry? Why they are so popular?
Oh, why are they so popular?
Oh,
Yeah,
Well, I think. Well, I think the original Tom and Jerry's were extremely good cartoons, really funny. They, you know, Tom and Jerry's been made and remade over the years, sometimes not so successfully as the first ones that Hanna-Barbera did. But though the really good Tom and Jerry's, I think they're kind of timeless. That like young kids today could watch the Tom and Jerry's and not feel like, oh, these are just old cartoons. They're, you know, they're just funny. They're incredibly well animated, great funny gags.
and the thing about cartoons, you don't know as a kid how old they are. You think, oh, these are just made, you know, so you're not prejudiced against your parents liking Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
So you actually watch them, you know.
what must be for you a good collaboration between a director and composers? What can you tell us about your collaboration with Darrell Van Citters?
Well, yes. So Darrell Van Citters created a launch package. Now, because of COVID, everyone's working from home.
Yeah.
And in an ideal world, all of the story artists would have assembled together with him. But when we started, Darrell had put together an incredible launch package. So it's a real danger when you try to do a classic cartoon like that a generic version of them gets made. But Darrell was extremely precise in what made Tom and Jerry cartoons and Tom and Jerry animation different from, say, Looney Tunes animation or Disney animation. If you look at a character like Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck, they stand and they walk around like they're kind of like they're human beings, unless there's a special reason why they have to, like, sometimes you'll see Bugs Bunny hop like a rabbit, but generally speaking, he stands around like he's a human being. But if you look at the animals in Tom and Jerry, they all when they're relaxing, their paws, they stand like they're animals. And so Darrell was just so he had so many wonderful insights into how to capture the Tom and Jerry's, and he had very specific cartoons for us to look at. Like, he didn't say, look at any old Tom and Jerry. It was about maybe 30 cartoons from a very specific era of when Hanna-Barbera were doing the cartoons at MGM, and they were just incredibly funny and incredibly well animated cartoons. So then after Darrell would approve the premise. There was an approval process where Darrell and the producers at Renegade Animation and the executives at Warner Brothers, that they would either approve or disapprove the cartoons. But then we were left alone to make what we were going to make, and then we handed this rough edit of the cartoon. And then Darrell took it from there, and he didn't change a lot of things, but when things needed to be changed, he would step in and fix stuff. And just a wonderful opportunity working with those guys, and hope to work again with them real soon.
What can you tell us about the importance of the music in this series? We have different kind of music here: jazz, classic rock, and others.
You want to take that?
Or the importance of the different styles? Or
Yeah.
I think one reason I fell in love with animation at an early age, and probably a good reason my first two films were animation, is because of the, like you said, the importance of music is is much more so in animation than say live action. And I think more as much as anything because of the tradition of accentuating every movement, everything that happens, the music's driving it. So it's no different in the Tom and Jerry cartoons. And another thing too that, like for instance, there's a surf. It's not been released yet, but there's a surfing episode that we did, and so you did 60s surfing music, a la Beach Boys, and so did that style, which fit the mood of the music of the images, and so I think don't you think that's probably true that in animation the music is even more important
and in these ones what's very different is the music's created first. And in virtually all other cartoons the animation is all completed, and then only then does it go to the composer to write a score for it. But this was completely driven by the music. So yeah, that music was probably the most important thing after the fact that they were Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
What were your main sources of inspiration to create your amazing score, and how do you share the work on this series?
Sure, but what was the last thing you said?
How do you share your work? How do you work together? How do you share your work?
Well, it's like that was another kind of a first. Keith pointed out we don't usually get to collaborate the animator with the, and plus Keith is doing both, which I don't know of any other person in Hollywood doing that. So really made it, and so we kind of made it up as we went along, I guess. You just came up with a method, and it just sort of evolved where he would, like he said, he would come up with a story, and usually had the lyrics done and a big chunk of where the music was going. And then we would combine, and as he was drawing and I'm doing other things, other ideas would come in, and one would affect the other. So it was a lot of back and forth. And it also helped that we lived, I would ride my bike over, and he would walk over, or we would convene that way. So, the fact that we were so close geographically really made it a lot easier. And then, and I think we complement each other's abilities a lot as well. Fortunately, he doesn't also play piano. He's an incredible guitar player, so that helped. And with COVID going on, we didn't have to really go outside our community much to get everything recorded that we needed.
And the inspiration, I'd say the inspiration for the music, well, we're both huge fans of Carl Stalling, who did all the Looney Tunes stuff in the day. Music wise, Greg he's got a huge classical repertoire and under his belt. I'm more of a pop music guy, so I know a zillion pop songs starting from the 40s going forward. Greg knows an incredible amount of scales, incredible amount of classical music, and Greg got a degree in jazz. My main focus in music school was jazz guitar, so we kind of cross over there a little bit. Pop, for my pop inspirations, the Beatles are always first and foremost for me, and then for doing these kinds of songs with fun lyrics, the Sherman Brothers that did the old Disney songs, Ashman and Menken, the newer ones, and then all of the great Broadway composers as well. I love Sondheim. I think he has written some of the most incredible lyrics that any human being will ever write.
What is for you the main duty of a good composer?
Well, serving the film. I mean, that's I think
Yes.
the role number one, and getting paid.
Kath, You have worked on the great movies as a storyboarder, for example, Missing Link, Hotel Transylvania 3, Summer Vacation, Sports the Lost Village. How be a great storyboarder helped you concerning your work on Tom and Jerry in New York?
I'm sorry, I missed the second half of that.
How to be a great storyboarder as you helped you on your work as on music on Tom and Jerry in New York?
Well, you know, it sounds kind of egotistical for me to call myself a great storyboard artist, but,
Yes,
He's a great story. He's one of the top in Hollywood.
To be a great story artist, you have to love movies, you have to love making films, you have to just love the idea of trying to do something new, and you have to love telling stories. I guess that's it. You have to love telling stories. That's the most important thing.
And know how to tell a good story.
And then do your best to tell it in an entertaining, fresh way. I think that just because of time pressures in television animation, a lot of times there's not enough time for people to come up with real original things. That you've got a crazy schedule to turn your storyboard in. I really feel like the storyboards in the shows that we did for Tom and Jerry, I feel like all the gags are original. They're just, you know, my attempt to make people laugh. So for me, you know, and that's the other thing is different story artists have different strengths. Normally a movie, they'll cast like, oh, he's good at doing action. He's good at doing acting. He's good at doing comedy. So, you know, it's good to be able to do as many of those things as you can, but most story artists are best at, you know, one of those things. And I just really like trying to come up with funny things. Oh, I think Greg is sending you a link.
In your chat, in the chat box, I just sent you an animatic, so you can see what they look like before.
Thank you.
Yeah. So here's a sample of one of the animatics that we put together, and this one we can show. This one didn't get made for the series, so since Warner Brothers didn't pay for this one, I just went ahead and made it and stuck it on YouTube. But as you can see, it's a very, very detailed storyboard. There's a lot going on there.
What are for you the most important elements to make a good animated series as this one?
It's characters and stories
Yeah.
and music.
Music.
Do you have a favorite episode on this series, and which one?
Well, of the ones that we contributed to,
Yeah,
I'm gonna say the Pied Piper of Harlem, which this one isn't out yet, but it'll be in one of the next batches that they release. I just felt like we got better and better. For the first one, it was really scary because I had never tried to put something like this together in 3.5 weeks, so I didn't even know if it was possible. And normally as a story artist, you don't get involved in editing your story panels to music, but there was no other way to do this. So in addition to co-writing the music and storyboarding, I also had to do a rough edit in order to convey what we were trying to do with the cartoons. So each one that we did, I got more comfortable with how much we could accomplish, and so I think by a little after doing a couple of them, we finally got to figure out, well, we can actually do more than we were doing in the first ones, and And by the time it got to the third one, it was almost animated at the storyboard level. So, and that's really important because in television, it's the storyboard drawings may very well be the best version of that pose that will ever exist. Like it's only going to go downhill from there, or at least you can't count on the follow-up animation to be any better. So it's very important for the story artists to hit that pose as strongly as they can, because that may very well end up on the screen on television.
Can you tell us about the impact of the current global pandemic on your work?
Well, I've been joking that I've been socially distancing for the last 40 years. So for what we do, I'd already been working at home for 4 years, just because LA is just so hard to commute. So every studio, no matter where I lived, I would always get hired at a studio that was at least 90 minutes away.
Yeah.
So,
and same way with composers. I mean, our commute is from the kitchen to the bedroom after getting our coffee. So the only challenge a little bit was just we couldn't really go to a studio, to record, because so we brought everyone in like one at a time here, so we could control that. Unfortunately, and my wife's a fantastic singer. We've got friends that are great singers. So we had great resources. One of the singers did it remotely and emailed it, so literally we never left the room. We had a name for this place. What was it?
second bedroom productions.
Spare bedroom.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, we when we needed a singer that we didn't have access to, well, a lot of singers nowadays, they have their own studios. So Greg sent them a track to sing to, and this fellow was in Nashville, and he sent back 5 amazing different versions of the song, and we just picked the one we liked the best.
Which American director would like to work with and why?
Which American director?
Yeah.
Well.
Spielberg, for example.
Well, yeah, Spielberg. Okay, he says Spielberg.
Just rolling out there, sure, right.
I am huge fans of Trey Parker and Matt Stone, of South Park. Talk about a guy who can write great, funny songs. And Brad Bird is, of the theatrical animation directors. I love every movie he's made. They're all at the very, very top of my favorite movies. I don't remember their names, unfortunately, but the directing team that did Tangled, that they made an unbelievably great movie. I think there's lots of great people that around here that would be just amazing to work with.
Yeah.
Which are your current projects?
Well, the things that are in the works, we can't talk about. It's too early to talk about them. I mean, I have projects that I have developed, and then there are projects that we're approached by. I could probably talk about the ones that I've developed, but there's something doesn't feel right about it until we know they're going forward. So we're just gonna have to hold off talking about it.
Yeah, so it's too soon, unfortunately, but yeah, just say anything.
And my last question, what kind of advice could you give to someone who would like to work as a musician composer?
Run away. No. Well, I would say that, boy, you really have to have a passion for doing it, and you have to be enough of an A-type personality. It helps, at least in Hollywood, to have a little bit of an A-type personality, because you've got to spend a lot of time FaceTime and selling yourself. You got to be able to do that. and the talent's just kind of one of those things. I mean, I guess you gotta have that for sure, but it's mostly persistence and perseverance and long hours. I think a lot of people, it sounds very romantic a thing to do, but the fact is, if you're not used to working until the moment you get up and until the moment you can't stay awake anymore and loving it, then it's probably not for you. But so yeah, I think passion, perseverance, and never stop working on your skills, especially the way the technology I went through when the technology went from pencil and paper to computers, so sometimes there's a quick change, and you want to keep up with the technology and learn as much as you can about engineering and stuff that doesn't seemingly have to do with your job, because as a composer you have to be all those, a performer, an engineer, a composer, an arranger, and I do some conducting now too, so that's throw all that into the mix. It's you have to be able to wear a lot of hats, so it takes a while to develop all those skills.
I have nothing to add.
I stole that from him yesterday.
Nice. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right.
Okay,
bye-bye.
bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.